Speaking as a conservative Republican, what Trump did wasn't strength.
It was a shambolic catastrophe that Donald Trump is rightly embarrassed of.
Is this an economy or a crime scene, Matt?
It became something that Republicans wanted to take away, and they never figured out how to just let go. Welcome to Political Rehab, Smart Politics Without the Hangover. I'm Matt.
And I'm Matt.
Today, the hottest couple in America, DOGE cuts itself, Putin fuming, Brett Girl, epic flame out, Trump's super secret plan, hidden figures, plus in our deep dive segments, we'll hit the mailbag, including whether it's finally time to put actual toddlers in charge in Washington, and we'll hit our weekly That's Bullshit segment on RFK's sneaky attack. But let's start, as always, with our Trump dump.
Time for the Trump dump.
That's right. Welcome to the Trump dump, our weekly segment where we get it all out of our system up front so we can move on and have a great show. Because it doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, anything in between, there is something that happened this week that Donald Trump did that pissed you off. Now, Matt, it's a short week. It's Thanksgiving week. Can't be anything, right? All he did, he pardoned some turkeys.
Yes, there are a ton of turkeys in Washington. And yes, one of them did, in fact, create the predicate for my Trump dump of the week. I'm speaking, of course, of our Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who ordered an unprecedented Pentagon investigation into Senator Mark Kelly, Democrat of Arizona, for serious allegations of misconduct after the retired astronaut and Navy veteran joined 5 other Democratic lawmakers in a video message last week, urging service members not to follow unlawful orders. Let's take a look at that.
One has to carry out orders that violate the law or our Constitution.
We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
In the Army, or Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
and know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
The American people need you. We need you to stand up for our laws.
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans.
Except for our president, who didn't feel that way. He felt that all of these Democrats should be hanged for sedition. Of course, Mark Kelly, again, a service member veteran, had a response to that.
Rachel, I've had a missile blow up next to my airplane. I've been shot down, nearly shot down multiple times. I've flown a rocket ship into space 4 times, built by the lowest bidder. And my wife, Gabby Giffords, meeting with her constituents, shot in the head, 6 people killed around her. A horrific thing. She spent 6 months in the hospital. We know what political violence is, and we know what causes it, too. The statements that Donald Trump made is insightful, incites others. He's got millions of supporters. People listen to what he says, more so than anybody else in the country.
Let's be clear. Soldiers are not required to obey illegal orders. In fact, they have a duty to refuse them under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Service members are only obligated to follow lawful orders. Obeying an order that is patently or manifestly unlawful, such as an order to commit a war crime, can result in prosecution for the service member. This has, of course, come up recently in the context of Donald Trump bombing fishing boats off the coast of Venezuela. And so the bottom line is Trump doth protest too much. He seems awfully nervous and awfully brittle about anyone suggesting that the military doesn't have to carry out his illegal whims. We know that the mere suggestion that people don't have to obey him sends him into a frenzy of panic, or maybe, who knows, maybe his bone spurs are just acting up. That is my Trump dump.
I find it interesting that what Trump is essentially saying is the Uniform Code of Conduct is wrong, and that if you follow it, you're a traitor. Good one, good one. Mine has to do with Marjorie Taylor Greene. When she announced her retirement, MAGA broke into a victory dance. They treated it like a scalp, proof that Trump's power is absolute. And they're telling Greene didn't just retire, she was purged, humiliated, and sent packing as a warning to anyone who dared to cross him. Now, I know that Democrats love a good MAGA civil war.
We do.
But speaking as a conservative Republican, what Trump did wasn't strength. This isn't some middle of the road Republican in a swing district. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of Trump's most loyal foot soldiers. She isn't just MAGA aligned, she is MAGA. She campaigned across the country for Trump. Look, Trump has always loved to bully Republicans. He did it with Massey. He did it with anyone who doesn't kiss the ring fast enough. It's not ideological. It's not strategic. It's not even political. It's psychological. It's about feeding his ego. And the fact that MAGA cheers for it without question only proves what many of us have been warning for years. This isn't a movement, it's a cult. Republicans hold razor thin majorities in the House. We can't afford to lose a single seat. Yet Trump finds time and energy to go after Republicans, not Democrats, not independents. Stop kneecapping Republicans who would vote to protect you and start targeting vulnerable Democrat seats. Take a look at New Jersey 11th District, for example. Mikey Sherrill's gubernatorial win opens up a special election for a House seat. Cook has it as D+5, means it's Democrat leaning, but competitive, winnable. If Trump has tens of millions to burn, that's where you spend it. Instead, Trump wastes money tearing down Republicans who, God forbid, don't clap loudly enough for him. But Greene's exit made one thing clear. MAGA isn't expanding. It's a circular firing squad, chaotic, cannibalistic, and increasingly disconnected from the reality of Americans are living.
Every bit of that brings a smile to my face as a Democrat in a way, because, of course, I do a good MAGA Civil War, except for the part where you got to the, oh, wait, it's because our president is pathologically deranged. Oh, and he's got his finger on the button, and this hurts all of us. So, yes, I'm going to pour one out on the curb for the Republican Party, but really accept your Trump dump of the week, because we got to pour one out on the curb for all of us. And with that, let's get to our political rundown.
DOGE has been disbanded. This week, it was discovered that DOGE was disbanded 8 months ahead of its scheduled end. According to the Office of Personal Management, it doesn't exist. So here's my question. How will history remember DOGE? For me, it could have been a brilliant plan. It was instead botched up so spectacularly that it just failed. It could have been the biggest cut in government since Reagan. What do you say?
What I say is that they're trying to Jedi mind trick us into pretending that this whole disastrous episode never happened. Of course, it very much did happen. It was a shambolic catastrophe that Donald Trump is rightly embarrassed of. And look, maybe at the base of it, as you say, as a conservative 1980s style Republican, you tend to like the idea of, oh, we'll cut back the size of government. I can see how that appeals to your craven Republican mind. I say that affectionately. I love craven Republicans. I can see how that hits you right in the red center. But that's not what they did here. They claimed to have saved $214 billion. It is, oh my gosh, I should save this for a That's Bullshit segment. I'm going to make this a future That's Bullshit segment. Let me just give you an amuse-bouche to say that multiple journalistic outlets have looked at this. Their estimate of cuts inflated by at least 97%. In fact, there is a very good chance that when you tally it all up, DOGE cost taxpayers money because of all the chaos they caused. And by the way, Elon Musk is responsible. When Donald Trump never gets a Nobel Peace Prize, it's because of Elon Musk, because he forced through, along with Russell Vought, another fanatical right-wing warrior, this disastrous cut to USAID that's going to cause the deaths of 300,000 children around the world this year. You're not going to get the Nobel Peace Prize for that, Donald. You're just not.
Well, here's what's interesting. This was a golden opportunity for Republicans. They had the House, the Senate, the White House. They had a chance to really usher in an era of conservatism. They could have finally cut the size and scope of government. But like you said, they chose things like cutting USAID, which probably threatens democracies. We completely blew this on it. It was a wasted opportunity. They should be ashamed of themselves. And it's all because of their juvenile theatrics as opposed to doing it. As a conservative, I've written countless times about where are the DOGE cuts, where are the DOGE cuts. Now I know. They never got out.
It was all hoax. You know, what's really frustrating is that you and I could get in a room with our experience in government. We could find a list of productive cuts. We could save taxpayers
without
money.
Question.
We could make the government leaner, more effective. That's what people want. People would be cool with that if they didn't put it in the hands of a maniac. Speaking of the hands of a maniac, we have to talk about the Ukraine peace deal that made the rounds a week ago that was neither about Ukraine nor about peace nor really a deal. It turned out to be the brainchild of a Russian operative, Kirill Dmitriev, who manages Russia's sovereign wealth fund, sounds legit, and was working with New York real estate developer with no historical, geographical, or cultural knowledge of Russia or Ukraine, Steve Witikoff, more culpable Dumbkoff. They announced this deal via a leak to Axios. And again, not really a deal, a 28-point plan cribbed from Vladimir Putin's fever dreams of his wish list of what he wants to happen in his horrible, bloody war. And now Marco Rubio has spent the last week furiously backpedaling with our European allies and trying to get this into some kind of shape where it represents something. What's up with this?
Look, I think the person I feel horrible for right now is Marco Rubio. Here's a guy who I think is legitimately trying to do his job. He works for the president of the United States, and just the shit show that comes at him on a daily basis. It's hard to understand how this guy can even figure out where he is in the day. Look, we all hope there's a peace deal. We all want to see this end. But I think the thing that some fellow Republicans seem to lose is that America has always been the beacon of hope for freedom-seeking countries across the world. We've been the one to defend these emerging democracies. And yes, Ukraine has corruption. So does the United States. But yes, Ukraine has corruption. But that doesn't mean we turn our back on an ally. We should be united right now and have a firm line in the sand against Russia. But instead, we seem to be taking Russia's PowerPoint and making their wish list into a reality. And it's wrong. It's bad policy. And it's almost a Godfather style diplomacy by Donald Trump. And quite frankly, I'll be surprised if there is ever a deal. I'll believe it when I see it.
I can't believe, Wylie, what you've done to me. You're making me agree with you about Marco Rubio. Look, he's not my cup of tea politically, but he is a bona fide Russia hawk who has tried to be an honest actor in this and has worked behind the scenes while smiling his biggest smile as if he's gulping down a bottle of water. The thing that makes him happiest on earth. He's been smiling and saying, "Oh, sir, Donald Trump, what a brilliant genius you are," while quietly with the Europeans trying to fix this horrible Russian piece of propaganda. What's really disturbing about all of this is you invoked Ronald Reagan. NATO matters. And the worst part of this peace plan is that it would have allowed Russia to dictate who is in NATO, who we can admit, what we can do with our NATO troops. You are our adversary. You don't get to tell us what to do. How about operating from a position of strength? You freaking gutless, mindless cowards. Trump and his minions, wow, they got so played. It's pretty disturbing.
Speaking of disturbing, the Department of Justice, a federal judge has thrown out the criminal case against FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. President Trump's hand-picked prosecutor, Lindsay Halligan, was illegally appointed to the role that she single-handedly secured the indictment. Now, this quote I found so damning right here. Ms. Halligan has been unlawfully serving in that role since September 2025. So did no one in the DOJ think about this? This is amateur hour stuff. It feels like a simple Google search could have answered this question. Now, Matt, you've been talking about this on your live stream quite a bit. Is Bondi given a masterclass on incompetence?
No, Matt, you missed it. This is brilliant. What happened was the White House looked into the future and they realized that Lindsay Halligan is so damn incompetent that she was going to mess up basic procedure, basic lawyer 101 procedure in the grand jury indictments, which she did. And so looking into the future, they said, you know what we've got to do? We've got to make sure that her appointment is illegal. Because what this ruling does is it saves them from even greater embarrassment of having the charges dismissed because she is worse at being a lawyer than ChatGPT. You could get an AI to bring this indictment and follow correct procedure and not get it thrown out, but you can't with her. Yes, this is really, you know what's actually worse? Is that Pam Bondi's DOJ in the whole Texas redistricting wrote a letter demanding the redistricting, this whole gerrymandering gambit that Trump demanded. And they did it so stupidly, so idiotically on a legal basis that the Trump appointed judge in the case used the DOJ's own letter as the basis for throwing out the redistricting plan, the Republican redistricting plan. Is this a great example of Trump's team shooting themselves in the foot, or the greatest example?
I mean, or it could just be 4D chess, because I keep hearing this a lot. He's playing 4D chess and he's just so good at this. And let's face it, I'm not good at 4D chess. Maybe he is. Maybe he's just that brilliant that it's all happening. But this also comes after the Epstein debacle. It comes after just time and time again where the Department of Justice doesn't seem to function. I think that's the sad state of affairs, because justice is not working for the American people.
Speaking of something completely different, we have to talk about Donald Trump's health care plan. Now, there is a long provenance in Washington of Republican presidents promising that they have a secret plan that no one can know about.
Double
but that
secret
will
plan.
It's double secret probation. We have Richard Nixon saying, I have a secret plan to end the war in Vietnam, which I will tell you about after the election. We have Donald Trump saying, I have a secret plan to end the war in Ukraine, which no, there wasn't one. And now, in the past few days, with the ACA premium subsidies still not dealt with, the whole issue that caused the government shutdown, Donald Trump announced that he had a secret plan to come up with something better, a replacement, maybe a compromise. Turns out that he folded faster than Superman on Laundry Day as soon as the Republican House said, no, we don't support any of this. So was there ever a plan, or was this like all another Trump confabulation of nothing?
See, sometimes good plans come to those who wait. There is no reason to rush into something just because, right. If you're going to do it right, the thing I find fascinating about Trump and Trump care at this point in time is, if you remember in the debate during Harris, he said, I saved Obamacare. And as a Republican, I had to do a double take. I'm like, there is the Republican nominee for president saying, I saved Obamacare. Republicans should have repealed this a long time ago. They campaigned on it, they raised money on it, but they failed to do anything. And now it's a problem of our own making. And no amount of smoke and mirrors, no amount of bloviating is going to change the fact that in about a month, premiums are going to skyrocket for millions of Americans. And we can't talk our way out of this. And this idea that we have something and look over here, oh, wait, is it squirrel, doesn't save the problem. And it's part of the things that Marjorie Taylor Greene and other Republicans have been warning about. But for some reason, we just don't think it's going to matter.
If there's one consistent pattern in American politics, it's that Americans really display the psychological tendency that economists call loss aversion. They really value things that they have a lot more than prospective things. So early on in the ACA fight, Obamacare was unpopular. It's the reason that Democrats took that shellacking in the 2010 midterms. But loss aversion, once Americans got used to it, once it became something that helped them, that they were using, tens of millions of Americans are using to get lower costs on health insurance, then it became something that Republicans wanted to take away, and they never figured out how to just let go. It's like, we have to stop fighting this ACA fight. They're stuck 15 years ago. And until they accept, okay, the ACA is the way we do healthcare coverage in America now, they're never going to move forward, and they're going to keep getting spiked on this exact same point.
Speaking of getting spiked, kind of is that what's happening with the economy right now? It is in the toilet. Consumer confidence is down. ADP just reported the pace of layoffs has picked up over the last week. Inflation, layoffs, collapsing affordability are hitting Americans hard. But Trump keeps telling us everything's good. It's great. Turkeys are down. I saw today that turkeys, according to MAGA World, are down. Thanksgiving is down. Rest of the world doesn't see this. So is this an economy or a crime scene, Matt? What are we seeing right here?
It's a crime scene, and you always know that the cover-up is worse than the crime. And in this case, Donald Trump's cover-up is very bad. We covered this in last week's That's Bullshit segment. No one is buying this. The Walmart thing is a sham. Turns out that they're comparing. You know what? Just watch That's Bullshit. Watch last week's That's Bullshit to explain why this whole Walmart line is such inherent crap. But yes, you stated it correctly. With the Michigan Consumer Confidence Index, which is the most trusted measure of how Americans are feeling about the economy, it's not at its lowest level ever. It's at its second lowest level ever. September retail sales were weak. They came in at 0.2% growth. It's a slowdown that is way below economists' expectations. Wholesale inflation has ticked up by 0.3% on a month-to-month basis. The Conference Board has another measure of consumer confidence, also a sharp decline, its lowest level since the tariff turmoil of last April. Everyone knows that the economy is wretched. And I think Trump is getting himself into a trap that I'm very familiar with. I'm very familiar with it from running campaigns back in that 2009, 2010 period when we were climbing out of the Great Recession and Democrats are trying to tell people, see, things are getting better, but no one was feeling it. And so we were in the position of telling voters, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? And it didn't work very well. And I don't think it's going to work very well for Trump.
Well, come on. That was Joe Biden's strategy. Tell them that what they're seeing is not real. It destroyed him. Americans aren't going to tolerate leaders who tell them the grocery bills are imaginary. It's political suicide. And Donald Trump and everybody in Washington should know better. And the thing that's killing is this is self-inflicted. All the problems we have is because of Trump's reckless trade policy and tariffs. And which, by the way, are probably going to be tossed out as something he couldn't do anyway. But then we still have to deal with Congress, that one big, beautiful bill, which was an absolute unmitigated disaster. So the problem is Republicans are creating this with no end in sight as we just celebrated Thanksgiving.
I think the real problem here, and Democrats sneakily have it too, is it's great to talk about affordability. It's very hard to bring prices down. In order to do that, usually you have to have a recession, and no one wants this. This is going to be a real problem, but Trump's the one in charge right now, so it's going to hit him harder.
Yes, it's going to be a bloodbath this year because of affordability.
With that, we are going to go to a new segment, our mailbag. We have got some awesome questions from viewers and listeners like you.
You have questions. We have answers. This is the Political Rehab Mailbag.
Matt, first question here. If Congress had to get Yelp reviews, would rating be higher or lower than Spirit Airlines?
I think, for me, it is probably going to be significantly lower than Spirit Airlines. Because let's face it, Spirit Airlines might lose your bag, but Congress is probably going to lose your retirement savings.
I agree. Congressional approval rating, about 15%. Right now, 79% of Americans disapprove. I'd like to know who those 15% are who approve. It is, what's crazy is Congress actually in 2021, 2022, actually did a lot of bipartisan things. They did some good things, but memories are short and people do not like what they're seeing. So yes, lower than Spirit Airlines would be my answer as well. Do you know that I'm actually hot on Yelp right now?
Oh, are you?
Yeah, I wrote a review of a Vietnamese restaurant because they served truly delicious soup that my sons were really into. And I wrote a nice review and I've like hundreds and hundreds. I have more followers on Yelp than I do on there's a lot of social platforms, certainly than on Insta. All right, what's next?
If aliens landed tomorrow and asked who's in charge, would anyone have the heart to tell them?
I'm going to twist this question. I'm going to twist this question back around on you because clearly the answer is no. So my follow-on question is, what would you tell the aliens instead of pointing them slightly to the right of that giant 55,000 square foot ballroom that Trump is constructing? What name would you give them instead?
What name would I give them instead? Here's the thing. I think if aliens were to come down, I think I'd pretend Earth was already taken. Like, quite frankly,
we've been conquered already.
Sorry, somebody's already here. Like,
yeah, too bad. The Klingons got here 2 weeks ago. I would say probably Taylor Swift, followed by The Rock, followed by an actual rock. In that order, probably. I'd rather all of those. The Donald Trump. Our next one here. Okay, here it is. Should we let toddlers run one committee hearing a year just to see if productivity improves?
Without question. This is made for TV moment. We're already in a reality TV conversation, but at least when they have tantrums, it makes sense. It would just be perfect. And I actually think we'd probably get some stuff done.
I'm going to zag on you right here. And actually, I saw this one in the mailbag and I prepared a graph. I know it's kind of a silly question, but I have a serious answer. I've got a graph. I'd go the other way with it. I think the problem is Congress isn't doing enough hearings. Hearings are where you do oversight and create policy. I think, look, they're not doing it. They're not actually doing a big part of the job. So, sure, I think it would be awfully cute to have the toddlers in charge of one, but I'd rather that the toddlers that we elected actually held more hearings.
But here's the question. Would the actual toddlers make more sense than
I
what we
mean,
sometimes hear? I think of
More
I
sense
think
than
of-
Lauren Boebert, yes.
Probably, yeah, right. But remember when they had to be asked about Facebook and social media and they could not figure it out? Like they sounded incoherent. Congress did. So I think toddlers probably
Ted
make more sense.
Stevens, the internet is a series of tubes. It's tubes.
I forgot about that because I remember him with the Hulk ties just yelling at people all
You're
the time.
repressing
Yeah.
it.
I know that's what it is. So here's my question that I pulled up and I laughed. I really did laugh. And then I was a little bit sad actually, because I think I know the answer. Curious to hear what you have to say. If Congress had to retake the US citizenship test, would we still have a functioning government by lunchtime?
Okay. I'm going to dodge your question. I'm going to take it seriously. Clearly, again, the answer is maybe, because surveys show that only about 1/3 of Americans overall can correctly pass the citizenship test. Now, immigrants who are taking this test to become American citizens, they pass like 95 to 95%, 97%. So they're good at it. We're not. But what's interesting is that younger Americans are terrible at this. Like only 19% under the age of 45 pass. Older Americans are pretty good at it. Like 75% of those over 65 pass. And here's the thing. Congress is super geriatric. I think we might actually keep a lot of members of Congress just because they're so damn old.
See, I just don't know. I feel like when I look at Congress right now, they don't seem to understand what their job is. They seem to feel like it's just follow Donald Trump around and maybe put his face on a coin and put his face on Mount Rushmore. I don't think they understand the basics of what their job is to do. I actually think that if we put members of Congress in a room, first of all, they'd probably debate on words like what's unalienable, and probably the senators would filibuster, but I'm not sure they could pass it right now. And it's scary to think that's the case, but you do make a good point. They're all really old, so they may actually get it.
The interesting experiment would be all of those new citizens who just passed the test. What if we just swapped out the entire current Congress and just brought in those new citizens who clearly know a thing or two about American government? With that, let's get to our favorite segment of the week, where we call out something that's pervasive in American life.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
A bullshit?
This week, the Centers for Disease Control made a sneaky change to its website.
The CDC's new language regarding vaccines and autism.
There's a statement that says the claim, quote, vaccines do not cause autism, end quote, is not an evidence-based claim because studies have not ruled out the possibility that infant vaccines cause autism.
This new webpage that reads studies have not ruled out the possibility that infant vaccines cause autism. Studies supporting a link have been ignored by health authorities.
But that's bullshit.
There is a substantial amount of evidence that shows that there is no link between vaccines and autism.
It's actually worse than that. It's dried up 27-year-old bullshit.
There was a 1998 article that proposed a link between childhood vaccines and autism that has been serially debunked.
That's right. This all goes back to a 1998 paper by Dr. Andrew Wakefield, published in the British medical journal The Lancet, claiming that there was a link between the vaccination for measles, mumps, and rubella, the MMR vaccine, and a child's risk of developing autism. But it turned out that the 12 children that Wakefield studied were carefully selected, and some of his research was funded by lawyers involved in lawsuits against vaccine manufacturers, and The Lancet retracted the article. And since that time, the article has been debunked again and again. In just one example, in April 2015, the Journal of the American Medical Association published the largest study ever done to that point, analyzing the health records not of 12 children like Wakefield did, but of 95,000 children. That study confirmed that the MMR vaccine did not increase the risk of autism, and since then, there have been even larger studies.
Over 5 million participants, that's how large these studies are, show continuously over 40 different states that there is no association between vaccines and autism.
So, did anything new happen that would cause the government's official agency for fighting disease to change its medical guidance?
Is there any new information that you're aware of
No,
Actually, it's the opposite.
we've designed vaccines in such a way that we're asking less of our immune systems. If anything, vaccines have improved. Their safety profiles really are impeccable.
What's really going on here is just the next step in a process that's been unfolding all year for RFK to achieve his true goal, vastly dialing back Americans' access to vaccines, particularly for children. First, RFK Jr. gave some assurances during his confirmation hearing to become U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services.
If the data is brought to you, will you say, I see this, and I unequivocally and without qualification say that this does not cause autism?
Not only will I do that, but I will apologize for any statements that misled people otherwise.
Well, guess what end of a bull that came out of? Because 4 months later,
Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is ousting all 17 members of the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices.
he not only fired all the members of the panel that advises the CDC on vaccines, he replaced them with anti-vaccine conspiracy theorists. And finally, RFK Jr. announced that he wants to re-examine the use of all childhood vaccines, period. And the thing is, this is all bullshit because RFK has admitted that he doesn't care what the science actually says. Look at the testimony of Dr. Susan Menares, who served as the director of the Centers for Disease Control before Kennedy fired her in August.
I had suggested that I would be open to changing childhood vaccine schedules if the evidence or science were supportive. And he responded that there was no science or evidence associated with the childhood vaccine schedule.
To be clear, he said there was not science or data, but that you still expected you to change the schedule.
Correct.
RFK has been on a continuous quest to find a way to make a link between vaccines and autism, and he keeps trying to come up with reasons, and they all have one thing in common.
At first, it was the MMR vaccine.
Bullshit.
They said then RFK Jr. wrote an article in Rolling Stone magazine saying it was the thimerosal preservative that used to be in vaccine.
Bullshit.
Then it was the HPV vaccine.
Bullshit.
And then it was spacing vaccines too close together.
Bullshit.
Or aluminum vaccine.
Bullshit.
Each time the scientific community's debunked it.
There are two problems here. One of them is public confusion.
This means for all of us is that we can't trust the CDC anymore. They are not a scientific or public health authority.
The second is that the confusion is directly hurting kids.
We're seeing a decrease in vaccination rates. This year we saw 45 outbreaks of measles at least. That's triple the number we saw last year. Over 90% are unvaccinated.
Disease killed a 6-year-old in Texas, the first death from measles in the U.S. in a decade. And then an infected adult died in New Mexico. Both were unvaccinated. Measles is one of the most contagious diseases in the world. We have a vaccine that is 97% effective in preventing it.
Look, I'm a dad, and this stuff is scary for all of us as parents. Some of the people who worry about vaccines are coming from a place of genuine concern. When I was a state legislative staffer, the statewide head of the anti-vaccine group was an amazingly pleasant woman who could remember all of my children's names, even brought a little present when my second kid was born. I'm certainly not saying that concerned parents are evil, but I am saying that the head of the United States government agency in charge of protecting our health is actively working to lie about science, to take away access to vaccines, and ultimately to hurt American children because of his own personal fantasy vendetta. And that is bullshit.
Wow, another great one.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Just keep rolling these things out. That's fantastic.
Well, it's really a matter of just having a lot of great material, which I'm not sure is actually good news, but there's just a lot of it out there. But you know what? I don't want to dwell on all of that. I want to turn to the brighter side of things. Let's do our weekly closing segment, A Dose of Hope.
Okay, I'm going to start this week. I know I confused you because during our production meeting, I said I'm going to talk about Dick Cheney's funeral. And you just kind of looked at me like, what in the world could Dick Cheney's funeral be as a dose of hope?
You did have me on the edge of my seat because I'm a Democrat and I'm like, wait, you're excited about this and this is good. Go on. Tell me
Took
more.
a different approach because, again, I looked at MAGA. I looked at what's going on in the world and how MAGA and Trump world would not even invite it. And that's what started spurring my thought. So while MAGA may dominate the headlines with chaos and theatrics, we must remember that America is not defined by its angriest voices. If you step outside MAGA world, you'll see a very different America. One that still recognizes service, honors institution, and remembers what leadership is supposed to look like. That's what you saw at former Vice President Dick Cheney's funeral. More than 1,000 people filled Washington's National Cathedral. 2 former presidents, 4 former vice presidents, and leaders from both parties. Their presence wasn't just a tribute to a one-man service. It was a reaffirmation that America still works. Yes, our politics can be better. Yes, the noise can drown out reason, but in that cathedral, something enduring was on display. Respect for service, for the nation, and for the institutions that bind us together. People who disagreed deeply stood shoulder to honor a life devoted to country. It was a quiet reminder that disagreement is not division, that America's greatness has always come from spirited debate guided by shared purpose. We argue, we differ, we fight, but we still believe in the same flag, the same freedom, and the same promise that tomorrow can be a better today. That's what I saw at Dick Cheney's funeral, and that's my dose of hope.
Well, I'm certainly no fan of Dick Cheney, but I agree with you that what you saw at that funeral was respect for the office, for the institution, and a belief that America's institutions are part of what unites us. We're the only country ever founded with a belief in a common creed, not necessarily a religion, not even really a philosophy, a belief in a form of government, and that we owe to one another a certain kind of allegiance and respect. And I think that's what was being honored there, even as many Democrats continue to think that Dick Cheney, the man, was possibly a war criminal. They may not have had a ton of respect for him, but they wanted to show up to respect the office and the institution. I agree with you. That is a major positive. I'm not going nearly as profound for my dose of hope this week. I am going to go in a little bit of a different direction. Now, for a while, and you're going to know what I'm talking about, this was everywhere.
Hey, fellas! You want to know what time I woke up this morning? What time? Around 6-7. 6-7!
Oh, yes. I am referring, of course, to the most execrable meme to have hit America in a long time. The worst part of the brain rot cycle, brain rot referring to nonsensical, low-quality content that pervades the younger generation. And look, I have 3 kids age 14 and under, so I'm awash in all of this. There's brain rot. Did you know that there's a special category of it called Italian brain rot that's even freaking dumber? Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Wow.
But now, finally, and if you're over the age of 21, see what I did there, kids? I did the 21 meme. See that? I have great news for you. The internet meme 6-7 is widely considered to be dying or dead. And do you know why? Not because, as I stupidly did with my own kids, those older people among us fought it. No, we jujitsu'd it. What we did was we adopted it. We used it so much that the kids decided that it was uncool and then tiresome and then cringe. People like Keir Starmer have started adopting the phrase and turned the tables on our younger sistren and brethren. And yes, lo and behold, they have decided that this is no longer quite so fun or so cool. And I'm delighted to say that 6-7 is on the way out. Now, look, there is a little tiny glimmer of darkness in all of this because new similarly meaningless memes are making their way into the cultural ether out there. Numbers like 41 are apparently emerging to replace the 6-7 era. But for now, let's all bask in the fact that our kids can move on to having their brains turn into gray goo over something else, and that our ears will get a break.
RIP 6-7. But I think what I'm learning here is I just got to start throwing out numbers and see what happens. I'm going to start my own meme. I don't know what it is yet, but next time maybe it'll be like 2-3. I don't know, or 1-2-3. Maybe it'll catch on.
I think the lesson is anything that annoys us politically from the other side, let's just start doing it. Oh my gosh, this is it. This is it.
We found it.
We just got to start doing it. All of a sudden, the MAGA people will be like, no, wait.
No, you're right. That does sound kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yes.
America first. Ew.
What? Yeah.
So gross. Hey, on that delightful, insightful, strategic note, we have run completely out of time. For Matt, I'm Matt. We'll see you next week on Political Rehab.